It all started in Detroit, Michigan, when William Everett III, a college student, woke up from a prophetic nightmare of an approaching power from deep in space known as the Overmaster that was searching for individuals to be its heralds of doom, which brought forth Will's biggest fear of not having to take up his grandfather's mantle as the superhero Amazing Man he hoped to avoid until his powers manifested and Earth's survival was at stake from the great power that momentarily touched everyone on the planet, which few took seriously, one being Will's grandfather, Will Everett Sr., the first Amazing Man, who was currently battling cancer. As he explained to his grandson, their recessive superhuman ability wasn't conclusively linked to his illness or the death of his military son in Vietnam, the late Will Everett Jr., who was Will Everett III's father. In order to motivate him into taking up the mantle and seek guidance from his old friends from the All-Star Squadron to help him understand and control his matter and energy absorption abilities. So Will decided to set up an appointment at the All-Star Squadron's headquarters in New York so he could talk to the Flash J. Jarrett, which unfortunately all appointments will be canceled due to an emergency meeting. However, luckily, Will would encounter J. Jarrett outside the headquarters, who instantly recognized him as a relative of Will Everett Sr. and invited him in to get acquainted with the rest of the team. Thereafter, meeting everyone and receive advice from Wonder Woman about becoming a superhero despite him being reluctant to bear the responsibility, only in a span of a couple of weeks that saw the Overmaster's violent landing on Earth caused a global earthquake in his quest to end humanity because of their capacity to evolve, posing a severe threat to the balance of existence throughout the galaxy. So Will, now officially the second Amazing Man, joined Wonder Woman's split faction of the team that aligned himself with United Nations, while Nathaniel Atom, better known as Captain Atom, faction opposed that idea and worked like a strike force, calling themselves the Extreme Justice. Following this, Amazing Man with his team will be hit by a surprise attack from the Overmaster's henchmen, the New Cadre, who were given superpowers by him. Meanwhile, although Amazing Man looked the part, his lack of confidence and experience showed itself in battle before the rest of the team were defeated by their new foes. So not long after, our heroes recovered and led a full-on assault against the Overmaster and his cadre on Mount Everest, when Amazing Man managed to absorb the powers of the superhero Metamorpho Rex Mason, who could transform his body into all kinds of different elemental compounds. So after our heroes defeated the cadre, they went on to attack the Overmaster in an epic battle, where Amazing Man went on to next absorb the powers of an unconscious Flash in order to better assist his comrades in combating the galactic wanderer who destroys civilizations he deems unworthy to exist. Unfortunately, our heroes were still no match for him, until a now exhausted Amazing Man made the brazen decision to absorb Overmaster's powers to become one of the most powerful beings in the universe and engage Overmaster in a colossal clash of the Titans that lasted 15 minutes before Amazing Man tricked him into absorbing his powers back, which Overmaster's body translated it as an attack, since ironically his own powers used against him was his weakness, thus causing his inevitable defeat, as Amazing Man played a crucial part in saving the world in his first ever outing, but sadly not without casualties, as the supervillain turned hero, Princess Tora, Olaf's daughter, also known as Ice, sacrificed her life for the greater good. Moreover, Captain Atom thanked Amazing Man before giving him an invitation to join his task force. Succeeding this, Amazing Man will be bombarded and overwhelmed by the hot topic news press outside the Justice League headquarters about the death of Princess Tora. Luckily, the Martian Manhunter, John Johns, rescued him from all the questionings he couldn't answer and flew him inside to next try and convince him to be a full-fledged member of the Justice League. After his impressive performance, so after intense training and a few regulated missions with the team, Amazing Man decided to join Captain Atom's Extreme Justice instead, with members Booster Gold, Michael Carter, the second Blue Beetle, Ted Cord, and the alien queen telepath of Almerac, Maxima, to first stop the rogue and paranoid Colonel West from launching a missile at Russia, so he could strategically force the US president to launch a full-scale preemptive strike against the Soviet Union, since he believed the global geopolitical tension and struggle for ideological and economic influence between the two countries will end tragically if America doesn't attack first. Nevertheless, our heroes prevented that from happening, and then went on to make their base of operations at the entrance to one of the best kept secrets on the planet, Mount Thunder, which was an abandoned silver mine in Nevada that once served as an off-budget base designed to be the home of a military-industrial community in the event of a nuclear attack, when ironically they were attacked by a group of unmanned drones at the center of the bunker, So after they quickly disposed of the machines, Captain Atom realized the place had been maintained and updated with equipment designed by Cord Industry that was not in the regular weapons inventory of any branch of military service. So they continued to explore the base and override the security locks, when suddenly Amazing Man and Maxima were ambushed by a beta team of genetically engineered cybernetic telepaths called upon by the megalomaniac General Denton Singh, former Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, to eliminate them in a devastating battle with lots of blasts and explosions that barely saw both sides escape intact, which caused Amazing Man to want to quit the team because he didn't want to die for nothing, since it wasn't his business to get involved in dangerous situations that didn't warrant it, especially when more qualified individuals could handle it. Until he was convinced by Booster Gold and Maxima to stay, since they felt he was a genuine hero with a purpose. So 24 hours would pass when our heroes decided to go on and counter-strike another genetically modified organism kill unit that came to attack, although the new bioengineered machines were untested for combat. So our heroes went on to try and subdue them in order to take them in for questioning, as they came up with the plan for Amazing Man to absorb Maxima's telepath ability to help scramble the biotech's brains. However, the mental power was too much for Amazing Man to handle. Nevertheless, the biotechs and their mission to overthrow the US government, all in the name of freedom, would be foiled when Captain Atom arrived, engaging in another explosive battle that caused the biotechs to question their own mortality and morals, before interestingly deciding to join our heroes to take down their leader. While Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, and Amazing Man sat this one out after being injured, allowing Captain Atom, his somewhat lover Maxima, and the biotechs to finish the mission. Succeeding this, Blue Beetle will run tests on Amazing Man to see how much absorption he can take before his body overloaded, which almost appeared limitless, as it temporarily and seemingly randomly stored either matter or energy. Thereafter, Amazing Man and Blue Beetle will meet up with Maxima to clean up the debris at the military-industrial community. However, they will find Maxima in no mood after discovering Captain Atom broke her heart after not wanting to be in a meaningful relationship with her, since he loved another woman by the name of Betty Sansusi, also known as Plastique, a supervillain turned hero. Following this, Booster Gold, who was on monitor duty, will inform the team that Ronnie Raymond, also known as the superhero Firestorm, powers were out of control after he momentarily had leukemia with severe headaches. So Amazing Man stayed behind to monitor as the other heroes made their way to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to assist him, while convincing him to join the team before Wonder Woman tried to recruit him. Moreover, they would have Amazing Man attempt to absorb and gradually minimize Firestorm's power output that was constantly and dangerously surging, which despite Amazing Man's doubts, he successfully siphoned off Firestorm's powers, preventing a catastrophe. Interestingly enough, our heroes would manage to eventually recruit Firestorm to the team, and later take on powerful quantum energy based life forms designed purely with predatory abilities while only following orders. So Amazing Man used his absorption ability to try and weaken the creature in order to defeat it, which left him with quantum energy. Following this, Will would become attracted to Maxima, who shared the same feelings, since she admired his dark, sexy chocolate skin color, since it was very rare on her planet, which Captain Atom's now fiancée Betty will be the first to take notice of the romance. Moreover, our heroes will receive a distress call about 2 alien monsters invading a small town. So when our heroes arrived, Amazing Man was immediately shot at multiple times by the sheriff and his officers, after mistaking him for a villainous metahuman, which wasn't a good look for them. Unsurprisingly, Maxima would disarm them before our heroes went after the alien beings, which would later be revealed as Zan and Jane, shape-shifting alien twins from the planet Exer, who would later be known as the Wonder Twins, before they next disappeared in thin air. Furthermore, Amazing Man would experience a change in his physique from the quantum energy he prior absorbed, which caught Maxima's eyes, who was enjoying the sight when requesting him to attend a formal meal that was part of a team meeting about the bad state of their superhero organization being unfocused, undisciplined, self-indulgent, and dysfunctional, which needed more time running combat simulations and non-combat skills. But first, they had to fix their base. So a month later, they hired Hal Jordan's girlfriend, Carol Ferris, the owner of Ferris Air, a company in Coast City that makes aircraft, to run maintenance, computer, and personnel for Extreme Justice. So as time progressed, our heroes would take on a distinct quantity of energy-powered wolf-like beasts before Amazing Man unleashed the stored-up quantum energy within him on the creature, which in turn was a relief on his body. Following this, Booster Gold will be tricked by the lying-crazed, malevolent supervillain pretending to be a savior, Monarch, who also opposed Earth's superheroes, as he freed Booster Gold from his suit of armor that gave him serious chronic unstoppable pain. So Monarch implanted in him uncontrollable quantum technology in order to mentally control Booster Gold to do his bidding. Nevertheless, Maxima would attempt to use her telepathic ability to drive Monarch out of Booster Gold's mind, only to be knocked unconscious from the stress, which Amazing Man will go on to carry her to safety while beginning to feel emotionally attached to her. So not long after, Blue Beetle, with the assist of Captain Atom, will heal Booster Gold before building him a new and improved exoskeleton suit from parts of the Wonder Twins spaceship. Moreover, the Wonder Twins will later join the Extreme Justice in monitoring while responding to reports of movements and activities of criminals before they become a problem, including supervillains and volatile political situations that warrant striking first. Following this, Amazing Man will try to give Maxima a quick lesson on Earth's culture through watching television, which was more complicated than it seemed. Especially when Amazing Man accidentally landed on one of Booster Gold's porn videos, which Maxima was appalled by the activity that was being used other than for reproduction purposes. However, Amazing Man went on to educate her on Earth's custom when it comes to mating and its different uses. So just when Amazing Man was on the verge of introducing her to sports, Maxima surprisingly planted a passionate kiss on his lips that was supposedly free of sexual desire. Furthermore, Amazing Man will also teach the Wonder Twins about Earth's fashions and superhero traditions while explaining his own life experience and superhero origin that he still hasn't fully embraced. Meanwhile, Amazing Man's grandfather sent him his utility belt that had useful elements to transform into and some of his old journals. Thereafter, our heroes will battle Killer Frost, Louis Lincoln, a robot duplicate of Gorilla Grodd, Wugon, Jean Louis Drew, the Madmen, and their leader, Brainwave Henry King Jr. within the Florida swamps, after they stole the corpse of Major Force Clifford Zemeck from the Quorum, which is a corrupt, top-secret government agency that intended to create an army of superhumans. So Wugon went on to resurrect Major Force to be part of their Legion of Doom, as Wugon took on Amazing Man, who ended up being the last hero standing when the Legion of Doom ganged up on him. So in a last-ditch effort, Amazing Man turned into sodium in order to cause a chemical reaction by touching a frozen Zan, who transformed into water, while his sister Jane transformed into an aquatic creature, which ignited and freed them, which gave our fallen heroes time to get back into action before defeating the Legion of Doom. Unfortunately, after a couple of missions with his team and the Justice League, the Extreme Justice was disbanded. So Amazing Man went on to join the Brotherhood of Justice and Liberty in France, alongside Blue Devil, Daniel Cassidy, Ice Maiden, Sigrid Nansen, Firestorm, and Amazing Man's new love interest, the leader Crimson Fox, to first guard the Markovia Crimtail Diamonds that was on display in Paris. So the team separated in two groups, with Amazing Man and Crimson Fox guarding the central room of the facility leading in, until sadly Crimson Fox was killed right after by the female supervillain posing as Ice Maiden, Nash, also known as Mist, who next tricked Amazing Man into thinking the wall he was about to use to transform into was stone, when in actuality it was glass. She added color to after chemically binding it, and then shot him with a high-powered firearm that shattered him into pieces, presumably ending his life. That being said, Will Everett III is DC Comics' second Amazing Man.